Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, John Clark, Scott Cosenza, and Graham Noble. And this is The Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. Welcome to Just for Fun. We are going to try something different this go around. Those of a certain age remember the Rowan and Martin show Laugh In. Well, they had a segment called The Fickle Finger of Fate. And they just, well, like the whole show, made fun of people. And we're going to do our best to revisit. Each panelist gets 90 seconds to introduce the wackiest or dumbest thing happening lately in politics. The rest of us have 2 to 3 minutes combined to talk about it. And I was going to go first, but I think I'm going to let Andrew go first.
All right, so you said politics. So I was going to talk about the whole Sydney Sweeney and the American Eagle jeans saga that's unfolding on social media. The left are losing their minds. But because of politics, I'll stick to my original topic. And this is already going down as one of the top 10 moments of 2025. And it's President Donald Trump meeting Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell during the Federal Reserve construction renovation tour. And this moment was hilarious in so many ways. I watched it live unfold and I could not stop laughing. And there was a moment where Chair Jerome Powell, he's sticking out his tongue as he's taking off the hard hat. Trump's just so confidently handing a paper to Jerome Powell, and then Jerome Powell's panicking. He's putting his glasses back on and he's reading it. And then then Trump says, "Oh, the renovation now costs $3.1 billion." And Powell's saying, "What? I never heard of that." So he reads it. He says, "What are you talking about? That's from a third building that was finished 5 years ago. You can't count that." And then, Trump ignored that and said, "Well, we're going to look into it. We're going to look into it." So if you put it in the context, though, for people who don't follow, the Federal Reserve, the meeting occurred as Trump just has called Jerome Powell every name in the book. He's called him a numbskull, a stupid person, too late Jerome Powell, all these things. So, Powell and Trump, that meeting it just made everything more comical and hilarious. I just had such a great time. I still look back on it with great nostalgia.
They were all dressed up. I thought they were cute in their hard hats. And I didn't tune into that very much, but I'll have to admit it was kind of funny seeing the guy, bust out in some sweat beads.
I thought it was interesting because the media presented it in two diametrically opposed ways. Some said, Trump had disgraced Powell, and some said Powell had handed Trump his derriere on a platter. So I thought it's just an example of how the media spins things. Sorry, Scott, just getting my 2 cents in.
No, don't be. I wanted to ask, sorry to bring something like serious into the equation, but I really do want to ask Andrew. And I kind of know, but also kind of forget. And I think that probably a lot of people watching won't know. Who does Jerome Powell work for?
Well, he's the head of the Federal Reserve System, so he doesn't really work for anybody because, he also, okay, now you're going to the whole...
I see where Scott's going.
The U.S. Central Bank, they're beholden to Congress, but then the Federal Reserve operates independently, whereby they can make any decision they want without any pushback by taxpayers or Congress. There's actually a lawsuit going on against the Federal Reserve because they have closed-door policy meetings. And the people who are filing this lawsuit saying, well, you shouldn't have closed doors meeting because you're a public institution and you shouldn't be deciding things backdoor behind everyone's back, not knowing anything what's going on. So Jerome Powell will say he works for taxpayers in Congress, but it's an independent institution that can wield the power of the printing press and interest rates and anything at once without any congressional oversight whatsoever. Aside from that, the semi-annual monetary policy report.
I was going to go with its member banks, I think, is who I think he works for. But let me ask you this before we get too in the weeds. I don't know. We might want to leave it there. Just from your, you are our our economics man, and I know you pay a great deal of attention to all the data that's coming in constantly, and the policy discussions as well. Do you think that Trump's going to win in terms of getting Powell to lower rates. That's what that's about, right? I mean, it's just about one thing, that if Powell wants rates lowered, he's going to be able to get that done from his position, and Trump's trying to strong arm him to do that, right?
Well, never goes well when people are trying to get rid of the Federal Reserve. It doesn't go well for them.
Well, the consensus is that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates at the September meeting. And if you look at the summary of economic projections, it's a quarterly survey of Fed policymakers on their expectations. They're penciling 2 rate cuts for the rest of the year. But, the whole thing with Trump is that they should be a lot lower now, not quarter point, not half a point, but 3 points lower, because according to him, the economy is doing well, the labor market is doing well, and tariffs are not causing inflation.
All right, Graham, you're up. What is your fickle finger of fate?
Well, I think one of the main political kind of undercurrents swirling in 2025, and it has been swirling all year, and it's going to continue swirling, is Democrats trying to figure out the meaning of life. What their problem is,
42,
why they exist.
42.
Why has God done this to them? All that kind of stuff. That's what they want to know. Their problem is authenticity. It's always been authenticity. You remember the fake accents that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton used to always put on when they were speaking, because they would be trying to identify with the demographic of the audience. I remember that. You remember that. Pepperidge Farm remembers. And then looking at the 2028 hopefuls, they've still got the same problem. And you can't count anyone out right now, okay, when it comes to 2028, who's going to be the top of the ticket for the Democrats. But look at the people they've got. They're all fake. You've got Pete Buttigieg, who is gay, and nobody cares that he's gay. But he posed that photograph with the fake plastic breasts strapped to his chest.
Oh, yeah.
That was just very silly. But you got him. And then you've got Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, formerly Sandy. She wants to tell everyone that she's a Bronx girl, but she grew up in Yorktown, which is not exactly the Bronx. And she does the little fake accent as well. She sounds very much more Hispanic when she's talking to a Hispanic audience than she normally does. And then there's Jasmine Crockett, who wants everyone to believe she's straight out of Compton, when in fact she's straight out of private school. So there's another one right there. And then, of course, you've got Tim Walz, who pretends to be a man. You've got Gavin Newsom, who pretends to be a governor, and Kamala Harris, who pretends to be competent. So, as you can see, Democrats have got an authenticity problem, as I was saying. They need a real candidate and not a Muppet.
Good luck. Good. Maybe it's going to be David Hogg.
I have to butt in. I'll butt in again and just say, why are we denigrating Muppets? They're a beloved part of Jim Henson's legacy for the world, and let's not,
All right, Scott, you're on a roll. Go ahead. What's your fickle finger of fate?
For the life of me, the Zohan Mamdani, I'm looking down to make sure I get his name right. I have yet ceased to be reeling from the city-owned and operated grocery store suggestion. The idea that there are a sufficient number of Americans, or I don't know, maybe you don't even have to be an American to vote in the New York City mayoral race, a sufficient number of New York City residents, let's just say, to not understand how galactically awful it is. It actually animates my work at libertynation.com, because I think we have so much work to do to inform people about how government really operates, that anybody would trust the government with the means to get them their literal sustenance. That if they didn't do a good job with it, people could have really horrible effects. I mean, the only thing that would maybe be worse if it was government-run pharmacies instead of government-run food, because then you'd be like days away from dying rather than weeks or months away from dying. But without question, I know for sure that they will be a failure 100%. There's no way to make it work, because the only way to make something like that work is to actually have the incentives of the market system. And you take the markets away, it's like the Soviet Union. And for people who don't understand why that won't work, you don't have to be that old to have had a living example of that in the world. A big one, too. I'm sure there's plenty of smaller ones that we can look to now. But the answer is...
Yeah, he's probably still going to be the number one only ticket. And that's just It's ridiculous.
But that ties into what Graham was saying too about Crockett and AOC. This guy pretends to be poor. He pretends to be come from humble means. He's eating rice with his hands. But again, he grew up in a wealthy neighborhood. He grew up in a wealthy apartment. He went to get into some lavish wedding in Uganda that was had private security around there. So once again, he's just pretending. It's like the Pol Pots and all communist dictators where they pretended to be men of the people when they were just that such prosperous upbringings.
I'll chime in here. Oh, go ahead. I live in Bernie Sanders land, the multi-millionaire socialist. Okay, yeah, that's the common theme, and Scott's dead on. Scott, the answer is that soft people, going back to our earlier discussion, soft times make soft people. And it's only because of the affluence gained through capitalism and government largesse that so many people are enthralled with the idea of Marxism as it's a fantasy, it's a cult, it always is. And it always leads to this, Trotskyist divisions that we see and the infighting. But you're absolutely right. It's doomed to fail. And we do have a lot of work to do. And it can be dismaying because how can people be this ignorant of how things work? And so I do think it's going to crash and burn. And it is a fascinating thing to watch.
Trotskyist divisions and then starvation. I just had to make that point because we're talking about a food store. Then the next step is we all starve to death because Mao and Stalin, etc. Yeah. And that's
and they tried this government subsidized grocery store thing in, I believe, Kansas City. I was reading about it recently. I think it was Kansas City. They had one, and a local, I think it was a local journalist went around this store and did a report from inside the store and talked to some of the customers, and the stores, the shelves were literally, all of them were literally 80 to 90% empty, nothing in them. And there was a little cafeteria in the store, and that was closed, and the customers were obviously saying, well, it's always closed. I mean, it's never open. And there was never, and they were asking some of the customers, and the customers were saying, no, they never have anything in here, just nothing. And they tried so hard to subsidize that store and keep it functional. They just couldn't do it. Just didn't.
John Clark and I were discussing a book written by John Mackey, who's the Whole Foods founder. And he actually talks a lot about how difficult it was for, he's got it held up there.
Oh my God, show and tell.
Yeah. And he talks about how difficult it was to get the grocery portion right. Like before it was dry goods is how it started off. And they had a couple failures. Like the idea that it's easy, we know how to keep the right number of strawberries that we don't throw them away to and we have enough to meet demand. That's ridiculous that some mayoral anyway.
I think you're missing it, Graham. I think in Kansas City, the thing was their sales were so good that their shelves were empty because
that must have been
I bet that was
that must have been
quite the
I didn't even think
restaurant. They ran out of food.
Okay, Clark, did you have a fickle finger of fate so we can get out the food stuff?
Well, it did, and I was afraid somebody else was going to steal it. And it's the ongoing drama of the revelations about Russiagate and allegations that Mr. Obama is implicated. And that fascinates me because there seem to be a lot of smoking guns coming to the fore. And most recently, I don't know if it's true because I didn't delve into it, but I saw a headline where President Obama dismissed this as a racist attack. And that's sort of a culmination, it seems to be. Yes, it's all racism. I was young. I was hoping Dave Patterson would be here because he would have more. I don't think any of you have the longer view of Watergate. And I don't think the Republicans swirled around Nixon to applaud his behavior in Watergate. But if, in fact, the revelations about the lies by several government heads of key departments at the instigation of Obama to feed and fuel an attack on Donald Trump are true, then it far dwarfs Watergate. And yet the mainstream media are saying it's a distraction from the Epstein files, which is another big it's right now. And they're kind of interwoven. It's almost like Epstein is the distraction against Russiagate. And I've written about, and many of you have written about Russiagate for years in the Steele dossier. And the obscenity of that whole affair. And I would love to see justice in that. In fact, I'd drop Epstein just to see the truth come out. Not that we have to either or.
I think it's going to dribble on out. I mean, Gabbard
No,
is
but the
releasing
Obama part.
documents
the
little by little.
Russiagate part.
I think he's panicked.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Republicans did not rally around President Nixon. They convinced him to resign
Right.
before it got any worse.
That's my recollection.
They told him that they were going to kick his ass out of office if he didn't resign.
Yeah.
That was the
it was the Republicans. Democrats
Yeah,
had
I thought.
nothing to do with it.
By the way, the
Democrats
the Obama bots are going to well, actually, I shouldn't say Obama bots. The Obama insiders, they'll also be on a curve for disclosures. When the further away he is the center of the universe of the Democrat Party, and like other power sources get, where you don't have to risk a full shunning to say something negative about him. We're going to see some great books and articles and podcasts come out from people who are going to make some hay with talking about how he was at the center of the universe of that
Jake
Russian.
Tapper. Jake Tapper's our.
He is not the son.
But
Hey guys, I mean,
I'll just. Oh,
Graham, go ahead.
no, Andrew, you jump in. So what you want to say, Andrew, and then I'll.
I was going to say, of all this, I think the best thing coming out of this was Tulsi Gabbard and her press conference and how good she looked. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
She was very straightforward about it. Very.
Yeah.
That's the most serious I've ever seen her.
It's also unprecedented for. Yeah. Sorry.
You can tell she takes her role seriously because that's the most straight-laced I've ever seen her. You know, she was very kind of stern, but I thought she did a great job. But anyway, what I was going to say is that what was interesting, and I too, John, have heard that apparently Barack Obama is now kind of hinting that this is a race thing. You know, he's playing the race card now. But his office did actually issue a statement in response to Trump, because Trump basically said, yeah, you know, Obama was the ringleader of it. He was the one that basically told his national security people, go out there, put together an intelligence community assessment that highlights Russian meddling, you know, so that we can basically make it look as though, you know, Trump is basically some kind of like Russian asset. And when Trump made that accusation that Obama was the central guy behind this, the statement that came out of Obama's office did not deny that, didn't actually deny that he did what Trump accused him of doing. It just said, oh, you know, we don't dignify this White House with a response most of the time, but, you know, there's still no getting away from the fact that a bipartisan Senate report said that the Russians had you know, worked to influence the election, but they hadn't actually managed to, you know, manipulate any of the votes. But that was his statement. He didn't come out and say, no, I did not order this to be done. I did not do that. I did not say that. Didn't deny any of it.
Well, I don't think you can. It's all kind of in reports, etc. And guys, we got to wrap this up. Went a little long, and we'll fine tune it for next time. And I'm sorry Goldie Hawn wasn't here to jazz it up for you. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all as well. Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. We'd like to take a moment for a shout out to our board's producer, Laura Valkovic, who's on maternity leave, bringing in another member of Liberty Nation News into the fold. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.